Yep. Give me a nod when you're ready.
Like fourth.
Shooter's ready. Stand by.
Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Bullets and Bourbon. I'm Frank Gao. I am not joined by Matt today. Matt has been taken away, his other responsibilities. But our guest today is John Royer of Outdoor Dynamics. He owns an ammunition company, one that supports a lot of shooters in our area. Some guests that we've had on the show before, Cardi B, Rob Hewins, those guys all receive support from Outdoor Dynamics. He was the Carolina Classic match director from 2020 to 2023, one of my very favorite level 2 matches. Very good iron sights shooter and has a background as a pit crew member, coached pit crews for a little bit, and now runs a test lab all around NASCAR. So in preparation for this episode, I listened to his interview with Brian Connolly of Hunters HD, Casual Shooters Podcast, and also Manny Talk Shooting. So we're going to try not to go through a lot of that information. I picked out some questions, and I want to talk specifically about reloading, about NASCAR, and some other things. But John, did I miss anything in that intro?
No, that's pretty spot on. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So I was fascinated by all the NASCAR talk. It's not something I'm very attuned with. You have a professional career in NASCAR racing. You know, you did pit crews. Now you're doing a test lab. And you travel to all these different racetracks around the United States. And I just came up with a series of like quick fire questions about working with NASCAR and how it applies to competitive shooting and ammo manufacturing. So you sent me a video of you changing tires on the track. And when you dedicate yourself to perfecting something at that kind of speed, sometimes there's some peculiar habits that like spill over into everyday life. So like, for example, all of us that are shooters, we have trigger discipline, whether it's like a cordless drill or whatever. So what quirk from your time as a member of a pit crew has invaded everyday life?
Oh, yeah. So I looked at that and I've really had to think about it. And I think the biggest thing is making schedules, whether it's a schedule of football practice for my son or dry fire or orders that need to get prioritized. I think that's the biggest thing, that the schedules keep you on track, keep you focused from forgetting on what needs to be done and when. And I think that's really the biggest thing that it came down to. There's like everyday life. I don't know how I can say this right, but there's a lot of monotonous activities. So like dry fire can be very monotonous. It can be boring. You can easily sit on the couch and be like, you know what, I don't want to do this or that, but you have to find things that motivate you, whether it's going for M class or going for time or whatever. You got to find things that motivate you. And I think that was something else that has stemmed from that.
Okay. So you would say organization and also discipline or drive is what you took from it?
For sure.
Okay. Yeah, I can definitely see that. And watching that video you sent me, what similarities, if any, exist between visualizing a killer stage run and then also imagining like that perfect execution during a pit stop?
Man, I wouldn't say it's weird to think about, but pit stops and shooting they're parallel.
Right.
It's all about memorization, visualization. The things that Steve Anderson talk about all the time. When during the race, like we had certain calls, we had a playbook. It wasn't extensive, but I mean, there was 6 or 7 things that could happen, or that the crew chief could call down and say, hey, we need to make this adjustment, this type of thing. So in between pit stops, I mean, you could have 20 minutes in between, you could have just a few minutes in between. So I always just sat there and just first you visualize what you're doing, right? And it's every step. It's like the photo book that you flip and it shows you that movie, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, visualization and the memorization, it like I said, it's all parallel.
Yeah. Did you find it I guess, difficult to stay focused during those longer lulls, like 20 minutes. That's what always gets me in a match. Right after I shoot first, and then I go to the back of the order. Sometimes that's as long as an hour. It's plenty of time to,
Yeah.
get distracted or think about something else or look at your phone. What would you do? Or, is it always, do you always know how long it's going to be, or sometimes it's just indistinguishable? Like you don't
Yeah,
know. Okay.
you never know. I would say for 99%, maybe 95% of the tracks, you didn't know when it was going to happen.
Okay.
For example, how much knowledge do you have on the racetracks, like our schedule, Frank? Like, do you
Like
kind of
mad.
know where we go? Okay.
No,
So,
not
for
really.
example, we race everything from half mile to 2.5 miles.
Okay.
So, like for Richmond, for example, Richmond is a 3/4 mile track, so it's short. The cars could come on pit road at any time, so you were always on high alert.
Mhm.
The bigger tracks like Daytona, um, Pocono, Talladega, they're so big. You have time to put your helmet on, to grab a drink of water, and all this other stuff. So it was very track dependent.
Okay. And
You
I guess, do you prefer the quicker turnovers, or do you prefer the longer format tracks?
I never. I would say the stress, like it was higher stress on the short tracks, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily say that I preferred one or the other.
Okay.
You just had to know how to manage it.
Okay.
Um, Put it in simple terms. Sorry, that my
That's all good.
dog's
No
being a
worries.
ding dong. Um, so, for example, like let's take the Carolina Classic for example.
Okay.
You're going to have short. I'm sorry, small squads,
Mhm.
staff reset, so the turnover is going to be quick, and that's going to be the short track. That's going to be the high alert. I don't really have time to go talk to someone over here, over there. You're always going through your stuff. But
Yep.
like a local, let's take Sir Walter, for example. You
Yep.
got big bays, big squads. So you kind of have time to dilly dally in between. And then when you hear that you're on deck or in the hole, then you can kind of shift your focus on to going back to being a shooter, being a competitor.
Yeah. No, it totally makes sense. So you said you stepped away from that, being on an actual member of a pit crew about 7 years ago, and based on your interviews with those other podcasts, it was the travel, it was the work-life balance. But if there's one thing that you miss about that lifestyle that you would get nostalgic about, what would it be?
It would be traveling with that team again.
Okay.
We were a close knit family. We raced, we had, I want to say we had about 72 to 75 races a year. So we were always traveling. Sorry, Frank, you can probably have to cut this out.
Nah,
Um,
you're good, man.
all right.
No,
Yes. So we were always traveling, and yeah, it's the family, it's the guys that I miss being.
yeah, no, that totally makes sense. Yeah, you guys really get to know each other in a way that most casual acquaintances don't. Don't worry about your pup, man. That's not the
Yeah,
first
sorry.
time that we've been.
I
Yeah,
know. He's normally not like this, but he is wound for sound right now for some reason.
he knows you're live.
He
That's what's
does. I
happening.
know, right?
Yeah, my pup, she's a husky mix, and she has this really like high. She'll talk, like she will let you know what's on her mind. So she has come and interrupted podcasts. She's interrupted school, like all kinds of things. So
Mm,
impeccable timing for sure. So you were a member of Pit Crews, and then you also helped coach them for a little bit. That's my understanding.
I did.
Okay.
Yep. That would have been 2017 was the first year I was a coach. 2017 was a weird thing because I don't know how far in the weeds you want to go, but I was a coach, and then some things happened mid-season where the team suspended a few players, so I had to fill in for them. So I had
Okay.
to do like
You did
uh,
both. Yeah.
I did both, and that was kind of an awkward time. But yeah, 17 was the first year I coached, 18 and 19, and then uh, yeah, then kind of gave up that life and went into the dyno cell where I'm at now.
Yeah. So as someone who's been a member of those teams, but also like helped put some of those teams together, you're looking for people that are dependable, right? That are going to show up and do their job, going to stay locked in with the intense level of focus that's required. Um, how I guess I already mentioned some of them, but what are some of the qualities or what are some of the telltale signs when you look at somebody that tells you that they're going to be a good pit crewman?
Man, that's tough. That is the ultimate thing is that it's that first interview when you're sitting down from a kid. And when I say kid, like these they were literally they were 18, 19, right? They were right out of high school. But when you're interviewing, you don't they say that, and they may say the right things and all this stuff, but it's going to be the weeks or the months after that that really tells them, can they show up on time? Like you said, are they dependable? Do they take criticism? How are they advancing in their specific position? So I was never, I don't want to say not a good judge, but the initial was, okay, how does he interact? Like, does he look at the floor? Is he playing on his phone, stuff like that? So that was a big thing. And then it's going to be the weeks, the months after that that you can really tell, all right, this is someone we want to keep around, or maybe it's time to go our separate ways.
Okay. So the composition of the pit crew, I'm assuming you have some senior members that have been, battle tested, tried and true. Are half of those members more or less on like a probationary period? Do you have like a development league that of like people just waiting in the wings? How does that work?
Yeah, we have a development team. That was so the 2017. I was coaching a cup pit crew, so that's your senior level guys that have been around and all that stuff. And then 2018, I started a development deal. So that's when it was the minor league baseball, the farm team,
Okay.
the stepping stone deal kind of came in. But it was good. It was good to get those young kids around the older guys so they could see how they were. When you show up for practice, you don't show up 2 minutes before. You show up 10 minutes before, 20 minutes before, and have the right gear on, and that type of thing.
Yeah. Let's talk about practice. Do you guys just have a mock setup that's basically akin to dry fire? And that's what I'm imagining.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
exactly right. We have our own pit road behind the shop. It's got the wall, the pit box size, everything's spec'd out for the race that we're preparing for. We use the real race car. Um, what else? I mean, we wore helmets, so like the
Right.
visual was still there. We didn't do the whole fire suit thing because it's that part didn't really matter.
Right.
They were light enough that didn't really restrict anything, but it was more the helmet, the glasses, kind of the safety stuff that we always harped on. What else? Yeah, it was basically just a simulated pit road.
Okay. And I'm imagining you guys used par times as well to, to basically, I guess, what aside from time, what else are you using as a metric for
Yeah,
performance?
it, I would say 100% time.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Every motion when you step across the wall is timed, so we know. Like you said, we had our goals that we knew that if we were at or below, it's going to be a good pit stop. So everything was calculated. Every point, I should say, every point was calculated, right? So I don't know how to say this without getting too far in the weeds. So when a car stops, so
Okay.
stop
Yeah.
to drop, when the jack drops, that's your overall pit stop time.
Okay.
And then every motion in between that is calculated.
Okay.
And uh, boy, I got a loss for words.
It's all good.
It's looked at. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
It's
criticized, critique.
yeah.
That's what we're looking for.
Yeah. Are you guys purely like analog or are you using I guess like analytics? Like football's got huge into analytics, right? You got chips in
Yes.
the ball, you got chips in helmets, track and speed and all these things. Is the same thing happening in NASCAR?
Yeah, it's very close to that. Not chips, but we have overhead camera and a camera on both sides, so we can get all the data points from those, and it goes into a computer program where they're sitting there and we're manually putting the flags in,
Okay.
or at least we were at that time. It
Yeah.
may be different now, but yeah, they were manual data pointed, manually entered data points.
Okay. Gotcha. And then, I mean, I'm assuming that you guys did film review, kind of like how they do professional sports as well. Monday
100%.
morning, like coaches picking apart everything the team did wrong on
Yeah.
Sunday night. Yep. Okay.
Yeah. And everybody wore helmet cams too.
Okay.
So, and that was for a couple different things, right? The video never lies.
Right.
So it was, if there was an accident and we needed to look at a side of the car to see what the damage was like, or if a lug nut fell off and we needed to know why, or to make sure that the wheel was tight, like, so we could pop out the SD cards, throw them in our tablets, check it out, and say, we're good to go, or we need to come back in and fix something. So,
Yeah.
so we could do that live at the track. I did it on the airplane ride home, and then Monday, Tuesday was film review.
Okay. Yeah, super cool, man. I appreciate you delving into it with as much detail as you do, because you can tell it's a very high skill ceiling skill set, and that you dedicate your entire livelihood to it, and people do. So that's what I enjoy is getting all the nuances and something that I know nothing about, man. I'm a Chinese immigrant, raised in California. I wouldn't know anything about NASCAR pit crews. This is super cool.
Yeah, California. Yeah, it's always been an interesting market out there.
Yeah.
But it is what it is.
Yeah. I do want to kind of jump questions because we talked about like picking out people for pit crews and the right personality types. What do you look for when you decide who to sponsor on your pro team?
Oh, that's a good question. I get that a lot. What I do a lot of times is I vet that person through other people that
Mhm.
know them or kind of know them. So I kind of want to make sure that their social media is clean. I want to know. I don't really care how good of a shooter they are. Like if they're a grandmaster, master, that doesn't bother me. Antics at the range are more important to me than a letter behind their name.
Okay.
I like it if they are an RO or CRO or even a volunteer. If they're setting up a local all the time, or
Yeah.
if they're putting in some sort of effort. So those are the three big takeaways that I look at.
Okay. Yeah,
Um,
that's all pretty
yeah.
important stuff. So have you ever sponsored somebody without actually meeting them in person then, since you do that through other people?
I pretty sure I have.
Okay.
Yeah. At least maybe not a face-to-face not maybe not a face-to-face conversation, but I'll at least call them up and talk to them on the phone. It kind of comes back to the interview that we were talking about when the kids would come in, right? Like that's kind of the same thing. You kind of get that first impression on, how it could potentially go.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. No, that totally makes sense. It's a topic we talk about very often. Matt was in charge of the Marine Corps shooting team for a while. So he would have to pick, out of these young Marines, like who to give orders to come to the team. And a lot of the same things that you were talking about, being dependable, having good character, that's kind of what they look for, right? And that's why they pick people like Joshua Cardenas and some of those other people. So yeah, no, it's really interesting how I don't know how people develop judgment of character and how it all comes to basically the same thing, like willingness to help people, presenting a good image, just being a good person, right?
Yeah, I think being dependable, like that's got to be the number one thing, because it doesn't matter how good you are. If
Right.
you're a GM and they're the best at everything, but they're always 30 minutes late to the match, or maybe that's a bad example, but if you can't depend on that person to show up or help you or something like that, it doesn't matter how good you are, because
Right.
they're not dependable.
Right.
So
Yeah. Or in this case, they show up and they don't hold the timer at all. They don't help with the tablet. They find an excuse to shoot
Yep.
first and then leave before tear down.
That's
Uh,
right.
so I don't know. I saw that in some other GMs, getting into shooting, and always told myself, try to be the opposite of that. Um,
That's right.
yeah, I'm trying to sanitize everyone's impression of open shooters. Is basically what I'm trying to do. So, you did mention, so you shoot a lot of the iron sight divisions, right? Production, limited, and the meta right now is optics. It's red dots. I guess what keeps drawing you to the iron sight divisions, and what do you think that the shooting sports might be missing out on by gravitating towards dots?
Well, that's an interesting question, Frank, because within the past couple of months, I have switched to carry optics.
Oh,
So
okay.
I tried to stay in production and limited as long as I could, but at some point, at some point, there's just you're not doing yourself any favors, right? If you truly want to be your best self, and there's no one, boy, I'm going to sound like an asshole when I say it, when there's no one to go up against,
Yeah,
like how can you judge? You
that's
can
valid.
judge yourself by overall, I guess, but it wasn't working out for me. So I decided to jump out, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's the same reason I jumped into carry optics in the beginning was because all the really good shooters were in carry optics,
That's right.
and that's why I compete is I wanted to go up against them. So I totally understand. I started off in production. I think I learned a lot shooting that division. I feel like people look at it like it's a starter division, but it's really not. It's incredibly
Mm-mm.
punishing.
That's
It
right.
You will learn stage planning extremely well because your plan is so much more complicated and just requires so much more technical detail.
Yeah.
I miss it in a lot of ways, and in other ways I really don't miss it.
Yeah, I think they did a good thing going to 15 because it did make it a little bit more fun. It made it more interesting. Um, and at some point, I've told myself if I make master and carry optics, I'm going to go back and try to make GM in either limited or production.
Okay.
So, and I think that would kind of help out with burnout a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, if you want to truly judge yourself these days, you got to have you. I mean, I think you just got to be in carry optics because even open's dying. I'm sorry, limited optics is kind of there. So, and I was just talking with Dave Riddle about the match breakdown for the Carolina Classic, and there was 100 and some carry optics, 60, let's say 60 for limited optics, and 46 for open. So the dots where it's at.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I share that. So what I liked about shooting carry optics was that if you went to a major match, it was going to count as a classifier, right? There's always going to be GMs over the threshold. I I wanted to make GM by match bumping and open, but there was just never
Mm,
enough GMs, right? I
yeah,
thought that in my head, I was like, that's the most baller way to do it. So that's the way I
for
want to
sure.
do it. Um,
Agreed.
but I would say also, having been shooting open for about 1.5 years, I think it's very top heavy, right? Like the people at the top are like really good at it. But I think the majority of that population is just they have the money to shoot the open gun. Um, and I don't know, sometimes I see people shooting, I'm just like, I'm so glad I started with production and got my shit together before jump like I was so glad I
Yeah,
just didn't jump into a Limcat
yeah,
2011, like blasting 9 major all over the place. Like,
yeah,
yeah. So
yeah. I mean, it is a fun division. It's great. It's just like you said, it can be expensive, especially if you're going to have two guns and the ammo and all that stuff that comes with it. So you have to be dedicated for sure.
yeah, no, I'm definitely feeling it. Speaking of just matches, so we're in the middle of summer, like we're in the middle of major match season. Is there any way to really get ahead of what I'm guessing is an inevitable rush of orders that you're getting right now during the summer?
No, no,
Yeah.
because it's not only major match season, like it's election season too. And
Yeah.
I think uh, I wouldn't say, I would say that 95% of my customers are competitive shooters, but the other 5%, like they want just plinking range burning ammo. So, and I've always contributed that to the political side. Yeah, for me, man, it's tough for me to stay ahead during the summer.
Hmm.
During the winter, I can kind of keep up because the northern states, the New England states, they kind of settle down for the year, and that helps me out.
Okay.
But um, yeah, there's no keeping up for me right now.
Yeah. Are your orders mostly concentrated on the East Coast?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. I don't have stats, but east of the Mississippi for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you've talked on some of those previous episodes about wanting to branch out. Are you content with where you're at, or is that something that you're still entertaining?
I'm pretty content where I'm at. Sometimes I go back and forth. I've had other people approach me about teaming up, but I don't. That makes me uncomfortable if
Right.
my name is still going to be attached to it because you have the ability of someone else not to do the quality that I want.
Yeah.
So that's always scared me. So, and I know that that has hurt my sales because I'm back ordered a lot. But at some point, I just have to say it is what it is, and just move on.
Yeah, no, it
Yeah.
completely makes sense. Yeah, because your ammo does have a reputation for being very reliable, for having good characteristics. So I taught Cardi B how to reload, right? And that's what he was doing to supplement the stuff that he was buying from you. And the stuff he was buying from you was getting shipped to my house. So my mailman paid me double for all the stuff that I was
Yeah.
ordering as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I've heard nothing but great things about your ammo. You spoke about it being an election year. So reloading components have kind of, they're coming down a little bit, but they definitely spiked for a bit. They got very scarce, and the last 5 years it's been pretty turbulent. So how did you end up choosing which distributors to get, your components from? And how important is it to, well, I guess, yeah, how important has it been to maintain those relationships?
Man, that's a great question. I Going back to the personal relationships, it's the same thing with my distributors, where I would call in my orders most of the time and talk to that person, and I
Okay.
felt comfortable ordering from them. And they were always upfront with me too. They're like, "Hey, we don't see this coming in for quite some time, so you might want to buy some, or we're out of stock." So that type of thing.
Okay.
Um, that's the biggest thing is being able to get a hold of somebody, even if it's through email or text, like just having them reply to you was pretty big for me. So that's kind of how I've stuck with the distributors that I use.
Okay.
What was it? What was the second part? I'm sorry.
I mean, you talked about basically maintaining the business relationships. I guess my next follow-on question would be, has there been talk about any pending scarcity or issues with it being the year that it is?
I haven't really. I wouldn't say so much about the election,
Yeah.
the war over in Ukraine, and the stuff going over with Israel. Like that kind of most people saw the thing that Alliant put out with their powder, right?
Right, right, right.
So I don't really know. I don't know what to believe because I'm not that big of a fish, so I don't really know that much about it. But I haven't really seen that be too big of a problem, especially like when COVID was a big deal, but things have really lined up since then. The prices, I don't think the prices will ever go back to the 2 cent
No,
S&B primers and stuff.
no.
But I mean, at least we can kind of get stuff now.
Okay. What are you, if you don't mind talking about it, what are you using for primers?
Most of the time it's Gen X.
Okay.
I've had really good luck with them. I tried some other stuff. I don't like Remington. The CCIs are decent.
Yeah.
The Federals are good.
Federals are great. Yeah.
There was another brand. It
So
started
you,
with a Z, like,
yeah, I
but
can't.
they were made overseas too, and I didn't have good luck with them.
Okay.
Like Zorsa or Zora or something like that.
Yeah. So I guess you're seeing all these other like new brands pop up. I think the other one I saw was Servicios Aventuras. It's somewhere in South America. And I guess
Yeah,
my question was, so um, back when I was teaching Josh how to reload, we would basically, this was when I was living in coastal North Carolina, rural area. We would just load up like a primer inside an empty case and would just go into the backyard and try to see if his CZ would set it off.
yeah.
Basically everything except for the CCIs were getting set off. But yeah, I was going to ask you if you had any experience with some of those newer brands. It sounds like Gen X has been pretty reliable. Um, and I think the reloading community and also the manufacturing community is still the verdict might be still out on some of these other new companies as well. It sounds like.
Yeah, yeah. There's another company, White River
Mhm.
Energetics, I think is the name of it. They've kind of come out
Okay.
within the past year or two. I've heard good things about them, so I kind of think it's manufacturing post COVID is always interested because that's been the excuse, right? It's COVID manufacturing. So if a primer doesn't light off, you just say, it's post-COVID manufacturing, which is a shitty excuse. But
Yeah.
in reality, that time between 2020 and 2022, the companies were just trying to get product out there, right? Because they were making a lot of money and all this stuff. And it didn't matter if you had a couple of hard cups here or there. But I think some of the quality is kind of starting to come back a little bit because we're starting to talk about it now.
Yeah.
And that excuse of post-COVID manufacturing, it's not going to last forever. At some point, it's going to be back to the internet forum saying, hey, I'm having bad luck with this. And the other guy's saying, I'm having bad luck with this. And then we kind of follow this trend of maybe we go Gen X or, whatever product is good or isn't good.
Yeah. The availability is definitely back. And when there's more availability, I started reloading around when COVID hit. And I was just grabbing wherever the heck I could find, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now that, there's actually stuff on store shelves and you can go and order stuff online at any given time, yeah, people can definitely afford to be pickier. So I think it's a good thing overall. But I'm a reloader for life, so I'm not changing my ways anytime soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you talked about your setup, and I've seen some of the videos of your warehouse, and you're running those Mark 7 Revolutions. So those of us that get into reloading, right? And I think you talked about reloading on like a 650 or 750 initially. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we know what it feels like, right? Like a proper sizing of a case, when the primer is adequately seated, right? There's all these small things that the machine tells you about the round, basically like, developing properly. With automation, you don't really get that benefit, right? Feeling the press as it cycles. So you're running all these machines. What are some like visual or audio cues that you look for to know that something might be going wrong?
Yeah, it's definitely audio. I usually wear earbuds, but I'll have the volume down extremely low so I can still hear them. Like you said, you don't really see what's going on. And also you have the clutch settings too that really help out. So I kind of have myself on a lower clutch setting. So when it clutches out, I can go over there and I kind of have an idea of what's going to go on. But yeah, I would say most of it's going to be the audio. You hear a bang, or sometimes I've seen a spring fly across the room or something like that. You kind of it's going to be all right. Which machine is it if it's not stopped? And then it's all right. We got to look at each one independently to see what the heck just happened.
Yeah, or cases and bullets hitting the floor, or just any of the fun things that could happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, so reloading is really messy and dirty. How do you deal with like all the debris that ends up just getting on your machines?
Oh, it drives me crazy. So I have vacuums. I try to vacuum stuff up as much as I can, and then I just blow it off. Yeah, you have a stoppage probably a couple times per hour anyway, so I'll just run a vacuum over it and kind of clean stuff up. But yeah, it definitely does get dirty still, even though I don't clean my own brass and I get my brass primed, which is a big help. So I would say that takes up probably half to 3/4 of the mess just to begin with.
Yeah, no, depriming is definitely super. Okay, so
yeah,
so you're not decapping or roll sizing in house. Okay, so that does help significantly, and you kind of need the brass to be you absolutely do need the brass to be prepped before it goes into automated machine. Otherwise, you're just going to have more and more issues.
That's right.
So when you started, you got these machines. Did you start off with the Revolutions? Is that what you?
No, I started off with a 1050 auto drive. I bought used. Yeah, used that guy for maybe the first year, and then like every year after that, I bought a machine and upgraded. Yeah, I just sold that 1050 earlier this year, and I had it for 6 years. So I mean,
yeah,
that thing was a mule. It just ran.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was the fastest you were able to run that thing?
I never got too carried away. I want to say 18 to 2,000 rounds, somewhere in there.
That's still pretty good.
Yeah. Even my Revolutions and stuff, I wouldn't say they're going that fast compared to what I've seen other people run, Matt, I'm
Yeah.
very conservative. Because
Yeah.
at some point, when the faster stuff moves, the quicker things can go south.
Yeah.
So
That's what I found too. Yeah, I run mine slow because uh when things go wrong at faster speeds, they happen more violently too, right? Like
yes,
cases get thrown, powder spills, and then you just
yep,
spend longer fixing it. And
yep.
ultimately, I think ultimately it's really less efficient. So that completely makes sense.
And especially when you're doing major, right? Because you can't have when the tool head's stopping, it's going to throw some powder anyway. So
Yeah.
you're just better off being a consistent thing too, right? Like you don't want to keep throwing 2/10 or tenth of a powder charge out the case, and then you
Yeah.
get to a major and you're showing a lower velocity than normal. So, yeah, you're doing the right thing for sure.
Okay. Yeah. So for people looking to get into automation, what do you think is the entry point for an
Hmm.
amateur, like, just a USPSA competitor?
Yeah, great question. I really like the 1050s. If Mark 7 would have kept the evolution, I really like that machine too. The Apex is okay, but I think as far as the maintenance of it,
Mhm.
it's a little more difficult than what the Revolution or Evolution is. So
Okay.
the 1050 is a great machine. Dylan has great customer service. And Mark 7 has great customer service too. So I think you can't really go wrong either way. But the 1050s, I mean, it's the standard. Dylan is the standard of reloading and has been for what, 30 years
Yeah.
or however long they've been around.
Yeah. No,
So,
they've been great.
mhm,
I've gotten a lot of replacement parts from them. They always ship super quickly.
yeah,
I would say that because they're so prevalent, because they're so popular, if you go trolling on forums or whatever, you search out the specific part you're having issues with, you're going to
yep,
find somebody who had that same issue. I have never reloaded anything besides a Dylan, so I can't speak for other presses, but I would imagine that it's not as not as common for like a Mark 7 or a Lyman or whatever.
yeah. What are you loading on?
Oh, it's an 1100 with a Mark 7 auto drive.
Nice.
Yeah, but yeah, it took me a while to figure it out. Like I guess how much aftermarket did you have on yours? Because I don't know. I'm always tinkering.
Yeah. I would say mine was the thing is Nathan Carter with Shooting Sports Innovations is right down the road from me.
Yeah,
So whenever he came out with a new product,
yeah,
he has a key to my shop. So he comes over, does what he needs to do without me even being home, and goes home. And then whatever he makes, he leaves me 10 of each, right, to try. So, I mean, like little trinket stuff, like powder knobs and
yeah.
damn, I can't even think of all of it, Frank. But I mean, for the most part, if it wasn't his, it was mostly stock.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. Yeah, I think I have their like nitrided powder dropper. So
Yes.
they definitely make some really good stuff. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, all right, yeah, we're getting to the near the end of the questions, but something that stuck out to me about the way you talked about outdoor dynamics. People are always asking you if you want to reload, different cartridges, 49 major, all these other niche aspects. And at one point you say that outdoor dynamics is kind of like In-N-Out Burger, and you focus on delivering the best experiences with select few products. I resonate with that. I grew up in California. In-N-Out Burger is one of the few things that I'm proud of that comes from California. So the first question I have is like, is In-N-Out like the GOAT fast food burger experience for you?
Dude, they're pretty solid. I miss the West Coast a lot because of that.
Yeah,
Animal style fries. Yeah.
can't beat it.
Hit the bricks, dog. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, damn. When you sent me that, I was like, damn, I really want to fly out there just to get me some animal style fries.
It's the first stop when so my
It's-
my brother, his girlfriend, my mom are still out there. Grew up in San Jose, but like you got it. That's got to be the first stop. That there's some obviously a lot of great food out in California. Um, so what would you say to like the naysayers that are just like it's just a burger?
I mean, Culver's is just a burger, or I don't know. I got no vocabulary for that.
Yeah,
I mean, it would, like you said, whenever we got off the airplane, when we fly to the West Coast, going back to racing here a little bit, when we fly to the West Coast, we'd fly out a day before. So we would fly out on Friday or Thursday. In-N-Out was always the first place we went to when we got off the plane.
Yep.
And if you can't have something, because the furthest east they were at the time was Dallas.
Yep.
So when you don't get to have something like that all the time, it's priority number one. Food for dudes is always number one, right? Anyway, so yeah, I can't really think of anyone who would be above them. I mean, like Culver's is decent if you've ever had Culver's.
Culver's is I've driven across the country 5 or 6 times just for military moves, and we stopped at the Culver's once. It was very good. I liked it a lot. But there's something about the fresh ingredients in In-N-Out, and also it's a good business model. Like their employees are clearly happy, right? They pay people well.
Bingo.
They train them well. They're well compensated. I mean, we can talk about the aesthetics. We can talk about the taste. We can talk about the branding. It's a well-run company. You know,
it is. It's always been clean. I don't ever remember going to a dirty one. And like you said, going in there, the people are nice. It's kind of like Chick-fil-A. If you want to get treated like shit, you go to Wendy's or McDonald's
or Popeyes.
Our Bojangles here in town sucks ass too. So
no, those employees are angry.
Yeah.
I heard that and I was like, that's a really good analogy. But you know, is there any experimentation going on? Are you looking at some new I saw that there's some different grain weights. I guess to put it into a specific question, have you more or less decided on like your menu for Outdoor Dynamics for the first year?
Pretty much where we're at right now. It's all the minor stuff. 115, 125, 137, 147. So those 4 right there. We had 9 major. At one point I think I had too many calibers. It was 40, 38 super comp, 9 major, and nothing compares to the 9 minor stuff right now, especially if we're going back to what we talked about with those numbers. And I'll stand behind that. I firmly believe if you shoot a super comp or 9 major, the best performance is going to be if you do it for yourself. Because I can make you around, but the range it's too much.
Yeah.
With comps and poppy holes and all this stuff. I mean, even limited guns on 40, most of them were pretty solid, but I mean, even then there were some 6-inch guns and some guys running shorties, and it's like, I don't get the warm and fuzzies. So I think that's probably one of my better decisions was to drop some of that stuff.
I mean, I agree with you, man. You know, it's custom 2011s and they're all different. But also, I mean, there are factory options out there. Ely makes 38 Super Comp, and the only people shooting Ely are the guys that are so rich that they just don't care. They just want to throw money at it and they want to get ammo. The rest of us have these absurd reloading setups, and we're we know exactly how many grains and what overall length works in our guns. So I agree. And you know, on your you know, for your company too, that's so many less I guess supply chains you got to deal with for powder and like that specific brass. And then I mean that it really just consolidates your supply chain.
And on top of that, it's bench space. Like I had a machine that was just for 40 taking up space. That original 1050 we're talking about, I eventually converted it just to 40 long and let it sit over there. And at times it would just sit over there for months. So and same thing. I was running different powder in 9 major, running different cases. It just got to be too much. And bench space, different. I got powder mixed up one time.
Oh.
And luckily I caught it right. And it was like, all right. And that was, I wouldn't say it was the straw that broke the camel's back, but it was definitely a thing of, all right, let's think about what we're doing here.
Okay. Yeah, no, it definitely makes sense, man. And there's such niche populations too. Like we said, the numbers of limited open shooters are just dwindling, and everyone's going to minor. And I guess, like, you know, have you dabbled in PCSL yet?
No,
Yeah, but it's all minor
no.
scoring. It's all minor scoring. So the need for a major power factor caliber is now completely moot because everyone's
Okay,
going to be shooting 9 minor. Like they straight up just don't have major power factor.
okay.
Um, yeah, I guess.
So,
Go
do they
ahead.
still have chrono?
They do. There is like, yeah, there is a muzzle velocity that everyone has to meet. However, Max Leograndis just straight up said like, I'm not dealing with major power factor. And
Okay,
I think the ethos of PCSL is we have these two main divisions, right? You're either shooting competition or practical, and you will show up ready for either of those two. We're not going to cater a division for your specific equipment set, which I think is a refreshing take because I mean we got so many divisions in USPSA, right?
hmm,
And it's like you said, like sometimes you show up to a match and there's no one in your division. Like who are you really racing against? Um, the Marine Corps shooting team has really embraced PCSL because the practical side of it. Like up in Quantico, we did a rifle only hit factor match called the Rack Raid Rumble, and the thought was like you bring your plain Jane A2 flash hider like mil spec rifle, and we're just gonna race it. Like we're all gonna race them with each other.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah, that's badass.
yeah.
Yeah, I've never shot a PCSL, and I don't really know that we have any down here. I think the closest one might be up by you.
Yeah, it's branching out. I mean, North Carolina has so much three gun in its DNA, like Zoo City's right there, and their match is honestly one of the best three guns in the country. So I think it's going to stay there for the time being. But I mean, it's standardizing. The nationals are getting more popular, and I think it's going to continue to. I think it's going to continue to grow for sure.
Good.
Yeah. Um, has anyone asked you about whether or not you entertain loading rifle?
I would not entertain loading it, but I am able to supply it through one of my contractors or one of my distributors.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, he sent me some. I have here in bags. I just haven't been out to try it, but I have 300 blackout and 223 available. So
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, that's good to I mean, we're talking about bench space and a bunch of other stuff. I mean, the brass prep for rifle alone just lengthens the process by two. So
yes,
I understand why you don't want to get into that.
yep, yeah. I tried pricing it out several times, and it just never made any sense. Never made sense to do. So
Yeah.
yeah, I need to do a better job of uh, marketing that stuff. I just haven't really put any effort into it, obviously. But the 300 blackout, I think there's some potential there, and probably 223 as well.
Yeah. No, the super popular rounds. But that kind of wraps up all the questions I had for you. Is there anything else that you'd like to leave the audience with?
Man, I can't really think of anything. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
Hopefully, the distraction with me and Bo didn't
Oh,
cause any issues. But
I think it's all good. Yeah, for those of you that I mean, we don't have the video of this, but the dog was basically like jumping all over him at one point. So,
yeah,
super cute from my perspective. But if you hear any pauses, that was probably it. But thank you all for listening. We hope you enjoyed this conversation. We're gonna throw up the link to John's the Outdoor Dynamics page, how to get in touch with him. Highly recommend his ammo. He supports a lot of my friends who are all great people, and he does a lot of great things for the shooting sports. Let us know how we're doing, and we'll catch you on the next one.